Hi guys, I'm Amy and I'm 13. I've been having nightmares lately that somebody is standing over my bed while I'm sleeping and trying to touch me. I was waking up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat until one day I discovered that everything was happening for real. I lost my mom 10 years ago when I was just a kid, and since then I've been living with just my dad. Our life together was not bad, but as soon as I got older, I understood that my dad really needed to fall in love again. I began hanging out with my friends more often, and I saw how sad he was staying at home all alone. That's why when he first registered on Tinder, and then he began dating, and then finally said that he found a nice lady on there, I was really happy for him. By the way, I think that Stephanie really was my dad's soulmate, because they have so much in common. They both like Chinese food and history movies, and they both were real fans of our local hockey team. In addition, both of them were raising 13-year-olds of the opposite sex, so they had a lot to discuss. Speaking of Stephanie's son, Nelson, I met him about 2 months later, after she and my dad began the relationship, and it was the most unpleasant meeting of my life. From the very moment he saw me, he began acting as if he was better than me. He was totally not made for any kind of dialogue, and even his body language showed that he was wildly bored. I saw that Stephanie felt embarrassed by her son's behavior, and when it was time for us to go home, she whispered in my ear not to take Nelson personally and kissed me on the cheek. It was very sweet. Since then, I actually knew that there was something serious between Stephanie and my dad, and that our life was going to change someday. But one day he came up to me and said that he decided to move in together, and that it was us who were going to pack our stuff since her house was bigger than ours. I was unpleasantly surprised. I liked Stephanie, and I could imagine her as my mom, but I didn't really want to change my life that much, because her house was literally across the whole city from ours, which meant that if we moved there, I had to leave all my friends from my neighborhood and spend, forever to get to school. I tried to be indignant about this, and I even fought a little with my dad, but apparently the move was already settled. A couple of days after this conversation, Dad installed the for sale sign on our lawn. We packed up our entire lives in boxes and went to meet our new family. Apart from any other worries, I had a thought in my head about how I would now get along with Nelson. As it turned out, I wasn't worried for nothing. If at the beginning of our life together, he was trying to act as if I didn't exist, then later, after a month or so, he began also doing nasty things to me. For example, he would take my homework out of my backpack so that I wouldn't discover what he had done until I was at school when it was already too late to do anything about it. Or he would add salt to my ice cream when nobody was watching, and other totally childish things. And I constantly caught him looking at me, not directly, but sort of on the sly. And whenever I looked at him back, he would be like, "What are you staring at?" I tried not to react at first, but then I decided to complain a little bit. You see, my dad obviously did not want to ruin his relationship with Nelson, so he could hardly tell him anything. In addition, he thought that I was exaggerating things a little bit, And Stephanie, well, she was definitely not the strict mom type. There were a couple of times when Nelson got bad grades and she would just tell him that he was grounded, but in reality, he was not. He proceeded to do whatever he wanted, like playing video games or hanging out with his friends. So, you see, all in all, the situation was really weird. But there was even more. Once, I had a really bad dream, as if someone was standing above me while I was sleeping and trying to reach my neck with their hands. And in that dream, I could neither cry for help nor open my eyes. I was just scared to death. Of course, after this nightmare, I woke up in the middle of the night and found my pillow wet from sweat. For a second, it seemed to me that the door to my bedroom had just been closed. It totally scared me, in reality, but on second thought, I understood that it might have been an effect from my dream. So I just tried to fall asleep again. But then a few nights after that, I stayed up late to read my ebook. It was dark everywhere, except for the dim light from my gadget, and the room to my bedroom was slightly cracked, and I just suddenly felt like someone was staring at me. I looked at the door, and I could swear that I saw Nelson's silhouette over there. It was totally weird, and I decided to tell my dad about everything. I mean, if my almost stepbrother was really stalking and watching me, he was either a pervert or a lunatic, and neither of these options were good, right? Honestly, it seemed to me that my dad didn't believe me. Because at first he said that since I was initially against us moving there, I was just trying to make things worse than they already were. And other stuff like that. Although, I must admit that he at least promised me he would talk to Stephanie about Nelson's behavior. Because, as he put it, there has already been enough time since we moved in together for him to adapt to changes and start acting like a brother with me. So it was kind of promising. At least, something is better than nothing, I thought. But later that day, I heard my dad and Stephanie fighting with each other. No, really. It was for the first time ever that I heard Stephanie yelling. And when I realized that she wasn't on the phone or anything, and that it was actually my dad she was yelling at, I felt so bad. Well, I mean, Nelson was her child, and she freaked out when she heard some critique of him from my dad. But I really didn't want the two of them to fight. I got so angry at myself for not being able to deal with Nelson on my own, and I just decidedly walked into his room without knocking. I wanted to put an end to his behavior, or what it was about me that he hated so badly. Well, I didn't expect to see what I saw. For you to understand, I've never been in his room before, because before, he wouldn't let me in and the door was always closed. But this time when I entered, I saw the screen of Nelson's computer. I saw the screen of Nelson's computer and the photo of me sleeping on his desktop. He even decorated it with hearts. At that exact same moment that I came in, Nelson had left his room to go to the restroom, and there it was, the moment of truth. For a mere second, he froze in total shock, probably trying to digest what was going on. And as soon as he realized that I noticed his computer, he turned red in the face and rushed to kick me out. Oh my god! It turned out that that freak was in love with me, and that's why he was doing all that stuff with teasing me and everything. Believe me, back then I was so surprised with what I had discovered that I couldn't even think about anything else. It was, definitely something serious that I should tell my dad about. It was super creepy to live under the same roof with somebody who comes to look at you while you're sleeping. That's why the next day I told my dad about what I discovered. Dad just totally freaked out. Well, any father would get nervous knowing that somebody had become attracted to his daughter. But here we had something more than just a regular crush, right? That's why later that day when everybody was at home, he directly asked Nelson whether it was true, what I told him. I think Dad was trying to arrange something like a face-to-face confrontation. So I was just sitting there trying to stay calm, but I had that triumphant feeling growing inside me. I couldn't believe that finally everybody, especially Stephanie, would realize that I wasn't exaggerating or anything and that her precious son was really a freak. Of course, Nelson denied everything. Actually, he acted as if my dad offended him with his words. Moreover, he began accusing me of having an attraction toward him. I saw that my dad was getting confused by everything that was happening around us. So the only thing left for us to do was to actually go upstairs all together and check Nelson's computer. But he had apparently managed to delete everything already. It was unbelievable. Once again, I sounded insane with my accusations, and he was totally off the hook. Stephanie gave me a disappointed look and left Nelson's room, followed by my dad. I noticed that he still had doubts about the situation, but I had never lied to him before. And that, I thought, would make him believe me. Later that night, I heard them fighting once again. The tense atmosphere between them persisted for almost the whole next week, and I literally did not know where to put myself because of my feelings of guilt and injustice. I tried not to stay alone with Stephanie because I felt the tension between us too. And then one day, my dad came into my room and said that apparently we needed to pack our stuff once again. Stephanie couldn't forgive him for his behavior toward Nelson, and she just told me that it would be better for us to just move out. I hope that none of you have ever faced or will face an experience where you just get kicked out of the house by a person who you already once had to change your whole life for. I wish my dad didn't sell our home so quickly. I can't describe how devastated my dad is now, and how sorry he is for everything. I can literally physically feel his guilt. but I'm pretty sure he will get over everything eventually. Thanks for listening to my story. If you liked it, press the like button, and I'd really appreciate it if you leave me a few nice words in the comment section below this video.